You're listening to the To Write Love on Our Arms podcast, a show about mental health and the things that make us human. Welcome back to the To Write Love on Our Arms podcast. This is actually episode 8 of our 5th season. It is already flying by. And over the past few weeks, you noticed that we've covered a wide range of topics. And this one we figured deserved multiple voices on the same screen, in the same room, at the same time. Today, we're talking about people and the diversity therein. We're talking about mental health conversations as pertains to introverts and extroverts. And we know that it's not always super simple to bifurcate the two. Sometimes we feel a little bit in both worlds, but hopefully this can just give us a little bit of grace for ourselves, just to understand that how we are interacting with the world and our own mental health is not necessarily altogether unique. There's people that know exactly how you feel. So to further this conversation, we have two guests. So we have our new friend, Jess McAuley, who is an INFP, me too, a Virgo, me too, and a new mom, not me. But she is from Niagara. She's an Ontario-based arts worker and performer, as well as the co-host of the Introverts Guide to podcast. While on maternity leave and when she has the free time, Jess is developing her craft of writing and indulging in her infatuation with Tombow and Copic markers. Tombow and Copic markers. I'm going to have to understand what those are. But between all of this, it is uncertain if she will ever sleep again. Well, we also have on the conversation Bianca Mujica, who is To Write Love on Our Arms Community Care Coordinator. That means that the majority of her work focuses on finding inclusive and creative ways to connect with our supporters online. She's a Mexican-American queer woman from Texas with a background in journalism and a love of language. Outside of work, here we go with the Tombow. She can be found doing a lot of colorful art pieces. That, of course, is when she's not eating pasta or cuddling with her dog. So yeah, Bianca is low-key probably, well, no, you are absolutely high-key our most visually creative and talented person on staff that is not employed by our design department. So
okay, yeah, I was about to say, what? No.
There's a caveat coming. Yeah. Just at the
okay.
tail end. So like I mentioned earlier, this conversation is a bit less nitty and gritty than some of our episodes earlier in the season. This is really going to be diving into y'all's experiences, knowing that we're not experts in personality typing. We're not the mental health professionals ourselves, but we are experts of our own experiences. So we're hoping that this conversation can definitely give some space and grace to people that feel introvert or extrovert, maybe different ways on different days. But let's start just with conversation. Jess, in your words, what does it mean to be an introvert?
I find that such a tough question to answer just because, I myself, and I know a few people, it's hard to generalize a complicated social preference and who we are as people into one sentence. But if I had to create a few characteristics, I'd say it's a social type that prefers to recharge in solitude. There's a preference of an environment that may have less stimuli. It's something within our control. Maybe more introspective person that maybe likes to listen and take in the stimuli rather than be in charge of it. So I do try to keep things as general as possible. We all have very specific needs as people. And I know there's a lot of introverts that seem to be extroverted, and I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I love that idea, that dynamic of energy flow, kind of what direction and where do you find yourself on that spectrum? Well, to mirror that question, Bianca, when you identify and when you self-disclose yourself as an extrovert, what are you hoping to encompass? What are you hoping to communicate? And in what way does that feel true to you?
So I would say that at the very core of being an extrovert, it's really about feeling energized by people, by being in an environment where other people are there. And if that's just like y'all are sitting next to each other and reading and not really talking, for some people that might be enough. For others, it may be like going out to somewhere where there's a lot of people, maybe you don't know anybody, but just being in that public social environment. For me, it's a lot of being around people that I know and feel comfortable with, and feeling energized and refreshed by spending quality time with people that I consider like good company. So that could be just going out for dinner with my friends, or that could be like going out to an arcade and spending all day there. It ranges, but it for me, it's really about the the type of relationship I have with specific people, and if we get to enjoy each other's company and just kind of build on that relationship. Again, like Jess said, it is very nuanced and there's a whole spectrum, so it ranges for people. But for me, it's really just about like feeling fulfilled and energized and recharged by just being in a social environment, whatever that may look like at any given time.
Yeah, I feel like it's super important to kind of hone in on that point that these terms, introvert and extrovert, they're not one size fits all. That you're going to have people, just as you were talking, like I totally related to that. Like I've often called myself a socially conditioned introvert. Like I know how to behave in big busy settings, like music festivals and whatnot, uh, but when I'm there, like I'm hoping for the individual contact, like the kind of putting it under a microscope. And if there's a million people there, like, yeah, I just want to know about the person right in front of me. So yeah, it's we all kind of take on different roles for that. And I think this past 2 years has really exposed new definitions, new facets to what it means to be introvert and extrovert. I'm already going off script as I'm wont to do on these podcasts, but I'd like to see what these past couple years have looked like in your world as we were dealing with quarantine rules, as we were doing social distancing and physical distancing. What did that look like as an introvert? Maybe even how did technology and podcasting fulfill or leave gaps in your introverted lifestyle, Jess?
Yeah, whenever there was the announcement that we're going into a lockdown, there was a lot of, obvious panic. And there was a lot of fear going into that. But then there was this other side that I didn't want to admit of, oh no, we have to stay home. We just have to be alone. Like it really was something that I felt okay moving into. I think it was just as time was going on, I started to use this as a positive moment where I could actually um, name the people that were in my circle that I knew I needed to cultivate and continue the relationships, and to tend to those relationships, making sure I'm not dropping the ball on anybody. And I think for me, that was, working in the arts sector, you tend to get inundated with people, especially as you start projects. There's more people coming into your life. There's more contact that needs to be made. And being able to slow down and take things as in bite sizes was incredible for me.
Hmm.
I think it wasn't until like maybe closer to the end where I started to realize that I was missing more of the social stimuli. I was missing the crowds and a certain energy. And that's when I realized that my cup was empty at that point. I do need to go out. I do need to meet new people. My cup needs to be filled. I'm going back to that to that metaphor, but it works so well.
Hmm. And Bianca, kind of the same question to you. What have these past couple years looked like as an extrovert, and maybe even with your specific role within To Write Love on Our Arms? You get to speak to a lot of people through our community text platform, through tweets and social media. But these are also people that you're not seeing and feeling and experiencing firsthand. So, kind of, what's it look like being an extrovert with your job, and what it feel like being an extrovert in a time when we were discouraged on getting that extroverted energy cycle going?
It has been quite a journey, a very difficult one for my social needs. But after experiencing quarantine and the pandemic, I have never felt more assured in being 100% extroverted. Um, because I just was not, it was really, really hard to be away from my friends who lived like 10 minutes away from me. And it was
Hmm.
really hard to be from my family who lived 10 hours away from me. Um, and I had already been working remotely for Taloha for maybe a year, almost a year when the pandemic started. And so I was already working from home, and my partner had a job at the time that was very long hours. And so I would just be at home all day on my laptop working, and it could get really lonely. And it was really hard because I had this dream job that I loved with an organization that I was super excited to be working for, but I felt so drained and tired from being home by myself in the same tiny cramped apartment all day without anybody to talk to. And occasionally we would have meetings or we would do some sort of live event. And I always loved being a part of those. But I would jump on them. I would try to join every possible meeting I could just to get some form of interaction because it sucked to just have like a Slack conversation that lasts a couple minutes, and that's the extent of my conversations for the day. And so my partner, who is very, very introverted, would get home after a long day of work and be tired and not want to do anything and just want to relax. And I would be like, please talk to me. I need something. I need like any form of attention. I just need to interact with a person. And it was a strain on our relationship because we were very much at odds. He needed to relax, and that was being by himself. And I wanted to relax, and that was us being together. And that only got more um, tense during the pandemic when we were only seeing each other. And he was working at home too for a lot of that. And so it was a lot of like me having FaceTimes with my family every week and me FaceTiming with like other friends and trying to find things to do that were keeping my brain and my hands busy, but was also giving my partner the space he needed. It was pretty tough. But I'm really grateful that my partner was there for me throughout all of it, even when it really was pushing against what he needed as well. So we made it work, but I never want to do that again. So not that I have a choice, but you know,
Yeah, yeah. Let's all be sure to vote no on the next round of should we have a pandemic or not.
yeah,
But thank y'all both for sharing a bit of that. It's almost it's the lowest hanging fruit of question of how'd your last 2 years look like. But I think it is important to see the uh, both the gap in experience and also the common ground that's still shared in that. So thank y'all both for drawing that together. That kind of leads into this next question of to what degree do you believe being able to put a finger on who and what you are, your introvert, your extrovert, your ambivert status, to what degree is that woven into a person's mental well-being?
Well, for me personally, I do struggle with depression, anxiety, um, and already I have a tendency to not ask for help. I'm somebody that just wants to have the answers. I want to be the fixer, and a lot of the times my loved ones confuse that with resiliency, but it's something that it's thinly veiled over me that I just don't want to reach out. And being an introvert who already prefers to be alone, I confuse that with my recharge time. And I put that in quotations, where
Mm,
it's really just a mental condition that's pulling me back from actually seeking care. And having a child now, I did just have my son 6 weeks ago. Asking for help more than ever is I don't mind being alone. I really, really don't, and I love my son so much. And I feel that a lot of the times I'm taking this maternity leave going like, wow, an introvert's paradise. I'm at home again. This is no problem for me. And slowly over as the days go by, I'm thinking to myself, there's something changing within me. And it's now I need to really pull that apart. Am I okay with being alone, or am I just accepting being alone right now on something that could be a real mental journey for me? Like this
Mm.
is something that is absolutely new. It's life changing. I am a completely different person than who I was before I had my son. Um, but yeah, I would say that they do get interwoven and they do get confused for the other. And it's certainly something that you do have to ruminate on when you feel that something's not right or something is too comfortable. And when something is too comfortable, that is not where proper change happens. We change happens when we're uncomfortable. So why is it that I can't reach out to my loved ones and talk to them? Is it that I am enjoying my own time? Am I enjoying my own company right now? Or is it that I'm just inhibiting myself from picking up the phone and calling my mom, calling my sister and asking for help, or seeking actual professional care?
Mm. Now that's beautiful, Jess. It comes or it calls to mind, something I've been ruminating on for several years now. The idea that finding healing within yourself does not necessitate healing being self-manifesting, right?
Mhm.
Like having some other people to bounce your life off of can still be possible even as an introvert. Maybe it doesn't mean a group therapy setting, but certainly it doesn't necessitate you having to find all the answers within your own experience, your own wisdom, but you're still able and invited to have other people as a part of your journey. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing. A- And again, to see the other side of that coin, Bianca, yeah, how important is it for an extrovert to identify as an extrovert, and how that's gonna have, ripple effects across your mental health journey?
I think there's two sides to it. I think, for one thing, being able to identify as an introvert or as an extrovert, wow, helps you see the things you need to keep your mental health in a good space. So if you are able to identify with a label and that helps you find what you need and that helps you kind of figure out the things that are going to help you find more balance and a healthy lifestyle, that is great. And I think that has been part of my experiences understanding what I need and being okay with that, even when it's at odds with what I'm able to do. And that kind of goes into the other side of the coin, which is when you struggle with your mental health, when you have something like depression or anxiety, it can be really difficult to go out and interact with people. And a lot of times, the things that you're struggling with are directly telling you not to do those things, whether it's because you don't deserve it or like that people don't like you or whatever it is, whatever reasons your brain comes up with. Um, there can be a lot of conflict going on. So I think there also needs to be this acknowledgement of, sure, I'm an extrovert, but I don't need to put the pressure on myself to live up to this label if I'm not feeling capable of that right now. And I think sometimes we struggle with imposter syndrome on things that really have no bearing on, like, the idea of feeling imposter syndrome as an extrovert is so funny to me because there's no competition for being an extrovert, but it still happens in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really depressed today and I don't feel like going out. So maybe I'm not really an extrovert. Or maybe
Hmm.
I am an ambivert and I've been lying to myself this whole time. And that is, I think that also is part of having OCD, is this idea of doubting all of the experiences that I have and feeling like I I think describing OCD is so complicated because even I don't fully understand it. but there's a lot of like obsessing and ruminating over what you do or don't have and doubting your experience and not believing yourself even when all of the facts are right there. And so for me, a lot of my mental health is like I have one little doubt and that seed just grows and spirals. Um, and yeah, so being around people kind of it can go both ways on that front. But I think it's for the from the extrovert side, it's definitely a balancing act because you have to do what nourishes you, but you also have to allow yourself the space to struggle and not be okay.
Yeah. So you both, in the past couple questions, kind of illuminated that when your introverted or extroverted self is not getting what you need, how isolating that feels. Bianca, you described the idea of kind of self doubt, and Jess, you described kind of this lack of momentum, this lack of even as an introvert doesn't mean that you're, you know, energyless. It just means you find that energy through unique spaces. So I understand that sense of feeling isolated when those needs aren't meant, but or I'm sorry, when those needs aren't met. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it's possible to build some guardrails to keep yourself on a track of self care throughout this. So Bianca, we're going to start with you. What have you kind of found as an extrovert to be things to hold you in balance with yourself when your needs aren't being met? What have you implemented in your life to make sure that your extroverted self is fed?
Therapy is the biggest thing for me. Therapy, 100%. I enjoy it, one, because it's in person. Well, it used to be in person. It's been virtual the past couple years. But just having interaction with somebody um, is great. And even if it's about like some very difficult topics, I'm very much a verbal processor. And so being able to not only like talk about things, but also to be able to interact with somebody in a very meaningful and impactful way does wonders for me. Also, making sure that I see somebody that is not the person I live with at least once a week. Um, and that could be virtually if that's what the circumstances require. But ideally for me, it would be something in person. Also, just checking in with people. And even if I can't see them, just reaching out, talking to them on the phone or through text, and having conversations about where we're at and what we're experiencing. I think those are some of the biggest things for me.
Jess, how about you? What happens when your needs aren't met, and what have you put in place to cultivate a way to make sure that you are true to yourself, that you're safe, that your self care is maintained?
Well, I am a stationary nerd. So for me, that looks like a calendar. I absolutely can lose track of time. When we were in lockdown, it was a vortex, like this vacuum. All time is just sucked into this one space, and you lose what day is it? Really, we're already in like June, and it was March that we went to lockdown. So I found that having a calendar now that we're moving out of this, being able to see, okay, this is the day that I'm going to have me day. This is all for me. I'm going to have like, and this was before a baby, but now it's a little bit different, but it's okay. I'm going to have a few hours to myself. I'm going to go for a walk and then I'm going to come home, do some more me time. On this day, this is family day. Now I need to check in with some friends. I have a lot of reminders on my phone to make sure that I am contacting my best friends, that I'm checking in with Phil, my co-host for the podcast, and we're grounded in our show. I have to make sure that I am keeping myself on the right track of ensuring that both me, I am getting my recharge time, but that I am also, again, tending to the important relationships. I find it is so easy for introverts for us to forget that, we may need our space, but those people that are in our lives, they need us too. and they need us to be present for them. So how can I show up for them? Is that looking like maybe a text message once a week? Am I going to call them when I feel I can be on the phone for a long period of time? Is that making sure that I go for a coffee with a friend? It's different ways that I can show up for somebody. And I think the more that I'm conscious about it, the more that not only is my mental health improving, but I know that I'm making a better difference for myself in the long term. I really am filling up my cup that way.
So, what does it mean to y'all to socialize? And what does alone time mean to you? Uh, and relatedly, in your experiences, is it more helpful to have this socializing time, or does it kind of hurt? Is it exhausting? In the same way, alone time, is that something that you are looking forward to? Is that something that you see as helpful, or is that something that you dread?
If I may, I find planning alone time, I'm better at planning that than I am planning dates with my husband.
Hmm.
I really enjoy planning the me time. It is what is going to make me happy? What's going to spark joy for me? Does that look like going to my favorite cafe downtown with a book and just people watch? Or is it going to be 4 hours of playing Minecraft? What is it going to be, right? I think it's anything that's going to spark joy and something that I can also be productive with. As weird as Minecraft to be productive, I know a lot of folks see it as a distraction. To me, I actually can physically build something. And if I'm building something or if I'm working with my Tombows and Copic markers, that's something that's putting my hands to good use. And to me, that's really great me time. That's something that I can walk away with and from the day and go, this was my time, right? And what does socializing look like? It can be as simple as that phone call. It is something that's just I'm checking in with somebody, and or am I going to the dreaded party? Introverts and parties, we don't really mix that well, but um, it's something that's going to help me be a part of a dynamic. And if I'm being a part of a dynamic in some way, I know that I myself am a human and growing because of that. I find if I allow too much me time, I'm not going to grow. And especially being an arts worker and being a writer and needing to bring the human existence onto the stage, I need to be able to nurture that part of myself. So socializing is very important as an arts worker.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Bianca, what define socializing, define alone time, and which one serves, I guess, a greater purpose for you?
I think that for me, socializing is when I get to see people that I don't live with. Um, Granted, I used to live in a house with like 9 people, and so it was always kind of socializing, but Jess is like, that is a nightmare.
No,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, it was only for 1 month, but it was still way too many people. So for me, socializing is now that I only live with one person and technically 2 animals. It's getting to see people that I don't live with, that I don't see on a daily basis, even if I interact with them through text, getting to engage with them face to face or computer screen to computer screen, and being able to just spend time together, whether that's like watching a movie or just listening to music or having a very engaged conversation, playing a game, whatever it is, just being able to spend time with people that ideally I have something in common with. Um, and alone time is pretty much when I'm alone. But for me, the ideal alone time is going to be when I am able to do something that I enjoy. So that would be making art projects, likely with Tombow markers as well. I don't have Copic, but one day. I really like just getting to spend time with my dog. And so sometimes I'll just be on the couch watching TV and she'll be on my lap. Um, those are the two main things that I spend my time on. But I think there needs to be a balance, like anything else, because if I have too much of one, then I will inevitably start to feel burnt out. So having a good, like, every other day, every couple of days, also planning it out and making sure that I have an idea of what my schedule looks like and what I'm going into helps me kind of figure out which days I need to maybe focus on self care more. And if I have some free time this day, then I can do a little something for myself or just rest. Um, so I think obviously as an extrovert for me, the socializing is going to be what I seek out more. But after like a full weekend of just hanging out with people all day, every day, I do definitely look forward to like Monday after work, just getting to sit at my desk and work on an art project and like not worry about having to be at a place or having to have like my social meter up.
Do do y'all have friends that are kind of your social translators? People that are fully aware of your introversion or Bianca, your extroversion, and can help you navigate areas that feel out of touch with you naturally. Like I'm thinking of a dear friend of mine, Blake, who he would always kind of be the guy to help me like find my boundaries within an extroverted section because he could see both worlds very very clearly. But I need a Blake. I need people to help me kind of make sense of the world around me. Sometimes I'm wondering if y'all have friends that are bilingual in terms of introversion, extroversion, and what role or to what degree it's important to have people that can understand you and link you to the world beyond.
Oh, absolutely. I have my own Blake but his just name is Evan. He's really great. Like he's somebody that can absolutely help me network. Whenever you in the theater world, we really do need to talk to each other and being able to network and move through a room and go and see people, go and talk to them about their work. He's brilliant for that. So he'll just drag me along and I get to meet people. I've met a whole bunch of wonderful artists because of him. But thankfully, I do have a good friend group as well that just understands my needs. And when we are at a party together, they can at least help me move through the awkward situations. Oddly enough, it's whenever that feeling of when somebody is panicking, even though you yourself feel like panicking, you oddly stay calm. I can be that translator for my other friends as well. So I can turn that on and off, but if I don't have to, I really love and appreciate those friends. And if they're listening, I love you very much.
For sure.
For me, I think I definitely have friends who are extroverted and they help me get out of the anxiety and tap into the extroversion that is just kind of like bubbling and trying to find its way out. Um, I don't, it's, I don't know that I necessarily have introverted friends who are like, hey, like you need to like bring it back down. But I definitely am that person for other people. My best friend and my partner are both very much introverts. And for my partner, like we've been together for 8.5 years. And so at this point, I know like there's certain things, certain, like if there's a certain type of music or a certain person comes or just like any sort of trigger, I can be in tune into what is going to be overstimulating for him and help him find an out in that conversation or in that situation. Or sometimes just helping him avoid a situation altogether if I know that it's going to be too much for him.
Hmm.
And that's really interesting when somebody like me comes from a very big, loud, boisterous family and he's very like not quiet necessarily, but he definitely needs alone time. And so there was definitely a learning curve of trying to figure out like what my needs and what I'm used to and how that can be at odds with somebody that I care about and want to spend my life with. But I think also just understanding that like even if I can't help get somebody out of that situation, I can help them get through it. And so for my best friend, who I actually met as a Tulaha intern, shout out to Jess, she is very, very introverted and sometimes just gets kind of overwhelmed because the world is overwhelming. So sometimes I know, like, I just need to hold your hand, or I just need you to lean on me, or like whatever it is. Realizing that simply being there for that person in that moment is more than enough. And I I'm grateful that I don't always need that in social situations. In isolating situations where there's nobody else around me, I definitely need somebody to kind of be my meter. But in terms of interacting with other people, I'm grateful that I don't have to experience it from that side of things too often.
Mm. Yeah, well, shout out to Blake and Evan and Chess, and all of those that don't share those names, but fill those roles. We are certainly all better together. Uh, I know, like, introverts and extroverts, it's kind of calmed down over the years, but there have been some, like, legit battles in public forums on introverts, picking fights with extroverts and vice versa. Just little underhanded comments here and there across Reddit and Twitter and all that jazz. I'm wondering if either of you have seen or read or heard something in pop media or otherwise that either really helped you understand you a bit better, maybe a picture perfect rendition of what it looks like to be an introvert or an extrovert, that's helped you identify those pieces within yourself, what those may be, and or on the flip side, have you guys benefited from seeing or reading or hearing something that made you understand the other side of the coin a bit better?
Um, for me, it was definitely Susan Cain's Quiet Revolution. She's an incredible author. She's spoken at TED a couple of times. She's somebody that really narrowed in on the difference between somebody who is introverted and somebody who is shy, which introverted and shyness, you know, a lot of the times we've put those two together. Oh, if you're quiet and you're shy, you must be an introvert, and that's just not true. You can be an introvert and not shy, and that shocked the world. So for me, that was certainly a resource that I went to start sort of defining what introversion was to me. And of course, there was the Myers-Briggs test, which that was just a nice little launch pad. That was something just to get you started, right? But that Susan Cain was somebody who I looked to, and I think being as well in theater school, uh, being around more introverts. I thought I was an extrovert for so long. I thought I was a lonely extrovert because I really liked being around people, but I still preferred to be alone. And I never took it upon myself to go out and find new friends and new experiences. So I thought there was something wrong with me until I started talking to other people like me. And I was in a social situation that was comfortable. So I think meeting other introverts and finding little bits of yourself in other people was what helped me define more of myself in the introverted world.
I think for me, I there's definitely moments where I've experienced something that I've seen in like a movie or a TV show and it clicks. Like when you're watching a movie and somebody like goes into the bathroom just to get away from people and the sound kind of drowns out and everything's muffled and it's just them. I experienced that once at a party where there was a million people and I knew a small handful of them. And I was so tired and I just went into a bathroom and it felt like a movie moment where I was like, the world is literally drowned out behind this closed door. And that was, I think, a really big moment for me to be like, I can definitely see how people feel energized by having this all the time. Um, that was not my experience. And it was foreign to me up until that moment. Um, it's hard to think of like specific references in pop culture, but I do want to touch on the idea of introvert versus shy because that is something that I completely relate to. I think a lot of my shyness comes from anxiety and this like obsessive thought spiraling pattern that my brain likes to do. And my partner, who's very introverted, is not shy at all. And so sometimes we'll be in a social situation and he will encourage me to go do something that he knows I want to do, but I feel nervous about doing. And so without putting himself in the situation, he is able to nudge me towards that and just say, like, hey, you guys like this? She likes this. And his shyness allows for me, for my extrovertedness to come out without him having to compromise his own introvertedness.
At To Write Love, we often talk about the importance of asking for help. It's okay to ask for help, but help can be a nebulous, ambiguous term. We also believe that it's important to be able to ask for what you need. And that's going to be different depending on how you interact with the world, whether extrovertedly or introvertedly. That could look like boundaries, well, for both. It could look like space for one and togetherness for another. It could look like a break, or it could look like a movement intentionally towards quality time. So how have y'all navigated identifying what you need, and in turn identifying that as a sense of help, balancing that with finding the courage to ask for it. It can be uncomfortable on both ends of the spectrum to ask for something in that directive terms. How have y'all kind of lived out ways of seeking that help, naming what you need, and finding a way to do that in a way that feels dignified?
I don't mean to plug myself here, but on my podcast, it is the motto of saying what you need. At the end of every episode, we ask, so what did we learn? And majority of the time is I need to say more often what my boundary is. I do need to be unapologetic about what I need. But something even deeper is that's a skill. It
Hmm.
takes practice. You need to practice saying no or yes. You need to practice sitting down with yourself and having those tough conversations about what I need, about what it is going forward that's going to improve my quality of life, and especially the quality of the relationships around me. Am I taking on too much, or am I taking on too little? Am I spreading myself too thin? Am I not paying attention to something in my life? Or am I allowing myself to be a part of something that's quite toxic to my life? And I need to learn to take a step back from that. I would recommend practicing um, different sayings within yourself that are comfortable. So you don't have to straight up say, no, I don't want to do that, but it could sound like something else. So I had to practice different sayings like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. I am going to think about it though. Can I come back and talk about that with you later? That's something that's really comfortable for me. So laying down those boundaries, practicing has been absolutely key. Again, don't know if I'm answering that question properly. um, but saying what you need is not easy, and I am empathetic for those that are practicing and they're stumbling and they're getting themselves involved with something they don't want to do and it feels like a thicker mess to get out of. So I would just go easy. Going easy on yourself is also been key to success.
I feel like as an extrovert, as somebody who is usually known for being outgoing and bubbly and talkative, there can be a pressure to maintain that persona. And a lot of times that feels like it's at odds with struggling with things like depression and anxiety. It can feel conflicting when you're going through something that kind of dampens the part of you that you're known for. Um, so for me, the biggest thing is reminding myself that it's okay to be whatever I am or need to be in any given moment. And allowing myself the grace and the patience to just experience this, let it be what it is, and not try to fit myself into a mold that I may have fit into yesterday, but don't today. Boundaries, again, I think is going to be extremely important for anybody. And I think they look different for everybody. But for me, it means accepting when I need space to myself, accepting when I need rest, and accepting the fact that sometimes recharging is going to be alone time. It is going to be not socializing. It's going to be just having a night at home. And knowing that it's okay to not be at my full extrovertedness 100% of the time. Um, Sometimes asking for help does mean that I deploy those extroverted skills and just putting myself out there. But I think if you have cultivated the relationships and the groups and the friendships with people that can support you and offer you that space of safety, then hopefully it doesn't feel scary or it doesn't feel like it requires courage. It just feels like something that you can do as part of the relationship you have with the people around you. That is, of course, easier said than done, but I hope that it is something that we're at least able to practice and that we're able to give ourselves the space to make mistakes in, and just understand that whatever little step we need to take towards asking for help is enough, even if it's just like thinking about doing it. Um, Even if it means getting stuck in that anxiety spiral, maybe you got one step closer out of it than you did the last time.
It was revealed to me recently that the term baby steps was not, well, maybe it was originally, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about the length of the stride. We imagine, babies, tiny people, tiny feet, tiny steps, but also imagine a baby who's just learning how to walk for the first time. Those baby steps are going to be a wider base than when we get our stride down pat. That those baby steps will be wobbly, and those baby steps you're expecting a fall. So with all of that, just like you both said, have grace for yourself in whatever direction you're moving, whether that's introvert learning more about yourself, introvert learning more about the external world, extrovert learning more about yourself, or learning more about the internal. So, y'all, thank you again so much for your time. If you have any parting thoughts, parting mantras, parting questions that you wish that I would have asked that I didn't get around to, now is your time to speak or forever hold your peace, or just until the next time we talk.
I would just tell people that if you're looking for a middle ground, pets are a good way to go. You get that interaction, get another being, another life around you without necessarily having to hold a conversation. So I always encourage that, and online spaces too. Like that's a good way to kind of straddle both worlds.
With that being said, actually, for the introverts that are listening, don't be afraid to go to a restaurant by yourself. That's quite controversial, I've realized. And um, I would highly recommend bringing a book, headphones, whatever it is. If you want to be in a social atmosphere, but don't necessarily want to be with somebody, going to a restaurant is a fantastic way to do that. And people watching is really fun. So I would definitely recommend taking yourself out on a date.
Again, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your experiences, for yeah, being part of this beautiful kind of tapestry of what it means to be human. And again, we hope that you as the listeners, whether you're extrovert, introvert, somewhere in between, or it depends on the day, that you felt honored, heard, and seen through this conversation.